All right, welcome to the show that as of now has no name because last night Nick it was going to be the Matt and Rat show, then Nick joined us, so we're going to come up with the name.
I'll be your trash weekly guest.
There we go. There we go. All right. So today we are going to talk about the Packers Cowboys game with our guests, Nick and Ryan. How are you guys doing today?
I mean, I'm all right. I'm a little tired, but I'm gonna push through this morning and talk about how the Packers are about to destroy Dallas. So I'm good.
All right, welcome to the show that as of now has no name because
Is that from
last
your?
night it was going to be the Matt and Rat show, then Nick joined us, so we're going to come up with the name.
I'll be your trash weekly guest.
There we go. There we go. All right.
I think that's on your YouTube account. Man.
Oh, all right. I'll stop that. Our guests, Nick and Ryan. How are you guys doing today? All right. Sorry about that. I think we got that fixed now.
All right, good.
All right. So where do we want to start?
Well, let's let you start.
All right. So real quickly, I'll go over the injuries. For Dallas, Doug Free with an ankle, doubtful to play. Rolando McClain is still in the concussion protocol, and his backup Anthony Hitchens missed practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury. For Green Bay, quarterback Aaron Rodgers is yet to practice, but Coach Mike McCarthy expects him to play. And cornerback Devon House is going to return after a lengthy absence.
Well, that kind of sounds good.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, Free's a big miss, but he's going to be a loss. But Jeremy Parnell's not that bad of a back. He's been playing well, and I think McLean's going to play. He just has an illness, and he's been bothered by like a knee injury the past few weeks, but he's been going through it. I don't know if he'll be 100% like he's been all year, but I think he'll definitely give it a go.
So Ryan, we'll start with you. For your player spotlight for the Cowboys, who are you looking at?
No other player than Tony Romo. But it's plain and simple. I mean, I don't know the connotation with him is always you can't win the big game or anything. You can't get it done in the postseason. And look, in this game, it's going to be freezing weather. I'm going to be looking for him to come have a big game and go on the road and beat the Packers. Easier said than done. You know, obviously, they're 8-0 at home, but Romo's been playing great this year and MVP level. He's probably not going to win the MVP just because he's Tony Romo, but definitely a shot to win the MVP. Definitely a shot to go on the road and beat the Packers, and combined with their running game, I think the Cowboys have some success. But yeah, that's my player spotlight for the game.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, for me, like specifically for the Packers, my original spotlight would have been like probably either Tremont or Schultz, whoever gets locked up on Dez. I don't know if they're going to trail him or not, but at this point, like we were just talking before, this is Devontae Adams. For me now, like if you really think about it, like they're going to like probably, or Dallas is probably going to trail like Randall Cobb with Sterling Moore, and then so. And Skandrick probably going to be covering Jordy all game. So that number 3 receiver, like I know he hasn't really done much the last few weeks of the season, but with that week off and everything, I'd like to see, because we're kind of joking, Brandon Carr isn't very good. Or at least he's not, in my opinion. So I think at this point, like it's going to come down to on offense, the Dallas's ability to stop those first two, and then Devontae Adams' response and see if he can, actually show up to his potential and have a nice game if for whatever reason Cobb and Jordy seem to get locked up.
For me, two I'm king on defense. Mike Daniels, who I love and I think is due. He needs to be Green Bay's over Randall Cobb and Brian Bulaga. Number 1 priority to extend this offseason. He'll be matching up with left guard Ronald Leary, and I think that this is a matchup he can win. And if he can do that, if he can take up block cuts, it's going to make the jobs easier for Dayton Jones, Nick Perry. So he's a big key for me. And then also it was between Morgan and Burnett. But then after looking at Devon House, who's likely to play, I think that's somebody who, in certain situations, because of his size and length, will be needed against Des Bryant. And I think Devon House will win a few of those, so Devon House is my other key.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly agree with that, especially if you can lock him up in the red zone necessarily. Like we talked, like part of my game plan with against the Cowboys is I want to double Dez no matter what in the red zone. Like, but if House plays, that's certainly I'm not sure necessarily you have to double him as much, but in the sense that House has the physicality to match up with him. I mean, there is no stopping Des Bryant, but if you can slow him down a little bit.
Here's the problem with if you double team Des in the red zone. When they get down to the goal line, they line him up completely outside and just let him work on like a fade route 1-on-1 or a quick slant or something like that. When you do that, it leaves two open men, defenders, completely on our side of the field. And what they'll do is they'll just run to that side, and then Murray will cut back, and that's why they're like they're top five in red zone offense, red zone efficiency this year. And also, Beasley's also huge in the red zone because he's just such a great pass catcher. He's so reliable. And then, although Cowboys fans can't stand him because he's really amounted to not much in his 2-year career, Gavin Escobar, could do a lot of things in the red zone as well.
Yeah. I actually went and rewatched the Cowboys game last week, and it was weird that it seemed that they were running Dez to the short side of the field a lot in the red zone, which was weird. Like, I didn't necessarily understand that. I don't know why they were doing that. Because, I mean, you don't at that point you don't necessarily have to be specifically doubling him, but if you can shade a safety slightly over it, like it takes away that slant. So, I don't know if that was just kind of an anomaly in the game last week, but it seemed that it was kind of counterproductive. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the same time, like, there's no stopping Dez. It is what it is.
Ryan, what are some of the weak points that you think Dallas needs to attack on Green Bay's side?
Well, for starters, you got to start with the running game to slow down Aaron Rodgers. Um, first of all, Murray's had an unbelievable season. We all know that, but that offensive line has been incredible as well behind the 3 first-round picks. But the problem is the offensive line looked really bad last week against the Lions. It got exposed, and albeit that like the Lions don't have the same rush defense as that the Packers don't have the same rush defense as the Lions. They still that the tape, if you look back last week, still shows some weaknesses Cowboys offensive line has. For example, their blitz pickup. That's been a problem all season against the Cardinals and the Redskins. The first game against the Redskins, they had problems picking up the blitz. But if they can just get it like solidify the running game and make the Packers load the box, it'll make it easier for Dez and Terrence Williams on the outside. Currently, right now, the Packers are 23rd against against the rush, so Murray can exploit that, and by doing that, it keeps the Cowboys defense off the field, which is the main reason why they've been more successful than last year at least. Not that they're more talented, just they're off the field 2 times left per game. So that being said, if the Cowboys can run the football, keep Rodgers off the field, and also score touchdowns and not field goals, it'll be a huge recipe for if they can get a walkout with a victory.
And Nick, that's one thing earlier before we started. Nick mentioned is Cowboys' lack of success versus the blitz, and that's Dom Capers' specialty.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, like if you go back to like even like the Redskins game earlier this year, or the most part of last week's game against Detroit, like blitz pickup seems to be a huge issue for the Cowboys offensive line. I mean, they've been pretty dominant all year, especially in the run game. But in a sense, like it seems like they struggle in blitz pickup, and like Matt had suggested, like they don't necessarily. I mean, if I'm sorry, like I kind of just froze up. Like Dom Capers, a lot of Green Bay fans aren't really big fans of him because for a while there was a severe lack of talent on the defense. But at this point now, I think he'll be able to realize that if you can unleash Peppers, Clay, get Mike Daniels free inside, like I think that's going to be a huge issue for Dallas's offensive line.
Yeah. And then the one thing for me is, I mean, obviously and this is my question about Dallas. One of their weaknesses, I think, is I don't think they're that great at getting after the quarterback, especially with the front four. So that would lead, and especially against Green Bay's offensive line, which is very good protecting Rodgers. So I think Dallas is going to have to blitz, and that plays right into Aaron Rodgers' hands.
No, I agree with you. I think the Cowboys are in the bottom 8 in the league in terms of getting after the quarterback. And although last week they showed some talent, they showed some potential with Lawrence, obviously, and Spencer's starting to come along after a season full of injuries. And he's starting to get it together, and without Melton, one of their best pass rushers, it's tough to get after the quarterback, especially from the middle of the trenches. But at the same time, Jeremy Mincey's having a great season. Like nothing the Cowboys would have thought. It's been like a great stopgap for Lawrence to develop. So if the Cowboys can get just a little bit of pressure, and it doesn't even need to be sacks, just needs to get Rodgers off his game, especially with the calf injury, can play a big part in the game.
Yeah, that's certainly something that I didn't think it would be a big deal following, a week off and whatnot, but the Packers coaching staff still seems to think that this is going to be a bigger issue than most are letting on with Rodgers' calf. So, I mean, Lawrence had that sack to end the game last week, and it's funny, like, a guy like Tyrone Crawford, like, he kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he's such a good player.
He's excellent. I mean, the reason why he came out of nowhere, you didn't hear about him because he was injured. He tore his Achilles in the first day of training camp last year.
Right.
He's been this year. And production-wise, statistic-wise, he's not in the Pro Bowl or whatever, but he's just a constant presence in the run or the pass on 3 downs. It's been great to see him develop under Marinelli, especially.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like your guys' Mike Daniels. But I mean, in the same sense, like, I think the biggest like X factor in this game, like, I mean, in terms of is turnovers. Like both teams finished in the top 5, I think, in turnover like differential. And it's just something the Packers don't do is turn the ball over. I think 13 on the year or something like that, maybe a few more. But if Dallas can get the pressure on Rodgers and he seems to be, or that calf tightens up, especially in the cold weather, and he turns the ball over a couple of times, that's going to be the way Dallas, I think, can win the game.
And you mentioned the turnover battle, and that's with Aaron Rodgers streaking this past 13 games, 36 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, which is just insane.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, stats like that generally don't do much for me, but once it becomes 13 straight games without throwing a pick at home, and I think, but at the same time, I don't know with that calf injury and everything else, and if the calf injury wouldn't be a big deal if they're playing in Dallas, like in the sense that it's a lot warmer, that muscle's not going to tighten up.
Sure.
But in Green Bay, like, that's why like people say like, oh, them being at home was such a huge advantage against Dallas. Well, I mean, if with that calf and everything like that, that's going to be a huge hindrance for Aaron Rodgers. Like the cold weather, especially.
I mean, yeah, the tundra in Green Bay could definitely play a part. But at the end of the day, I still think I still think Rodgers is really. I think is fine in this game. I really think people are making a bigger deal out of it as it is. I think he's still going to be incredible, and I really don't think he's going to lose a step. That's just Rodgers, in my opinion. He's just incredible.
And well, one question about this is with how the Dallas chooses to attack Green Bay. If they go with the 2 deep safeties, and you figure Green Bay is going to look to run the ball early, Eddie Lacy's been playing really well lately. I mean, Detroit hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher all season. Boom, Eddie Lacy does it, just tearing through tackles, finding holes in the middle. So if that happens, I think Eddie Lacy's in for a big game.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I mean, that's at that point. I mean, you have to pick your battles if you're Dallas. I mean, if you played 2 deep, Aaron Rodgers has basically shown the last few weeks even that he's not willing to check out of a throw and turn around and hand it off to Lacy. And the offensive line this year has been pretty incredible for the Packers. I mean, it was a huge question mark coming into the year, but with guys like Bulaga being healthy and Corey Linsley coming out of nowhere to be a borderline Pro Bowler this year at center was pretty incredible. And I think at this point, like, if Dallas decides that they're going to let Lacy beat them and not Rodgers, which is probably not the worst game plan in the world. I mean, it's going to come down to if Rodgers can stay, consistent with not getting greedy and not taking that deep ball, and him just being willing to turn around and hand the ball off to either, Lacy Starks 30 to 35 times.
I think the Cowboys defense is going to key in on Lacy, to be honest. I think in the past few weeks, dating back to the Chicago game, they held Forte to around 25 yards of rushing offense. I think the Cowboys run offense, especially Cowboys run defense, is playing at a much higher level than they were in the past few years. And especially if McClain gives it a go, I think they're going to be just fine in terms of stopping Lacy and containing him, especially on the outside and the middle of the field. I'm more concerned about Rodgers for sure. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback in the NFL for sure, and it's not that what he can do in the passing game. It's what he can do with his legs too. And again, like I said, I don't think his Carpenter is going to play that much of a part. I think he's going to be just fine. While Lacy, I think McClain, Lacy, that's going to be a great battle. But I think Bruce Carter, if he plays, that's going to be huge for them. He's like a lower back injury, but he's nursing it. And Carter's always been ravaged with injuries, really. Like a plethora of injuries have always been getting to him. But when he's healthy, he's a different player, and he's a playmaker at the strong side linebacker position, which is the position he moved to in 2015.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of excited to see some of the collisions between Lacy and McClain. I think that's going to be a huge thing. Like, we keep coming back to these injuries for Dallas, especially in the linebacking core. If those guys can play, that's going to be huge in determining whether or not they have to commit that extra safety to the box to stop Lacy.
And Nick, one thing you mentioned about the offensive line, Corey Linsley coming out of nowhere. I mean, obviously both teams have great offensive line, but it's kind of two different areas. I mean, you look two different strategies each general manager used. Dallas went a lot with first rounders, Tyron Smith in 2011, Travis Frederick in 2013, and Zach Martin in 2014. But with Green Bay, you saw Ted Thompson, Josh Sitton, who's now an All-Pro. He took him from fourth round in 2008. T.J. Lang, fourth round in 2009. Corey Linsley, fifth rounder last year. And then David Bakhtiari, the fourth rounder in 2013.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say necessarily that he's gotten lucky with some of those picks, but I mean, Bakhtiari was one of those guys he was so light coming out of college and his arms were kind of short, but he always had the movement skills and everything like that to handle that position.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned with Bakhtiari being light, and I think we're still seeing some of that versus run the game where he tends to struggle. But in the pass game, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably an average to an above average left tackle in the league, and you can get away with that. I mean, as long as he's not he's egregiously bad by any stretch, especially now with Bulaga staying healthy and everything like that. Bulaga was one of the probably top 5 or 6 right tackles in the league this year. When he stayed healthy, of course. I mean, he missed, 3 or 4 weeks this year?
Yeah. And Ryan, one thing I want to hear from you about, and we talked about this a little earlier, is the situation with, depending on how far Dallas goes and their coordinators and the level of interest around the league. How do you think that plays out?
Yeah, I wrote an article about this the other day, talking about Marinelli and Scott Linehan, the offensive pass game coordinator, but really he's the offensive coordinator. Both have been outstanding for the Cowboys this year. Linehan came to Dallas as like a pass-happy offensive coordinator, but he promised that he'd lean on the run, and he really has done that. And in the process, he's made Romo a more efficient player. Romo's really grown up this year. He doesn't have to make all the throws. He doesn't have to play hero ball, call it, if you will. Instead, he's using that offensive line to his strengths, and it's been big for the Cowboys for sure. And the Raiders have already contacted Linehan about a head coaching position for them. And I think that even though he failed with the Rams in 2006 and 2008, he'd be a definitely a good offensive coordinator, in fact, or I think he'd be a good head coach, especially if he can develop a quarterback and get like a good offensive line. They have it there. They have Greg Robinson, Roger Saffold came back, whatever from the Raiders, whatever happened with the Raiders there in the free agency. And I definitely think he'd be good there. With Marinelli, he's not getting a lot of attention simply because his defense is still in the bottom half of the NFL, but it's been years better than what people have thought it would be. With so much less talent from last year, they're without DeMarcus Ware, they're without Jason Hatcher, and they're without Morris Claiborne, even though he really wasn't that good. They're just bringing in guys like Tyler Patman, Sterling Moore has been incredible. Rolando McClain's been a godsend for the Cowboys defense. Jeremy Mincey. This defense they play for Marinelli, and they represent what his toughness and his skill and how he approaches the game and his fierce attitude towards the game. It really you can really see during the game how much they respect him and how much they want to succeed under him. And Marinelli was the only coach in NFL history to have to go 0-16, but I don't think he'll get a head coaching position. But the one guy that I'm worried about is Linehan. I wouldn't want to lose Linehan, especially with the consistency this Cowboys offense had. I mean, over the years they've always had the talent, but they've never had really consistency. And with Linehan, you're getting a dose of both excellent running game and a very good passing game as well. And if the Cowboys win this game and they go farther and farther into the playoffs, I really can't see either of them leaving simply because other teams around the NFL are going to have head coaches by then. So by winning football games in the postseason and keep advancing the postseason, you're not going to lose your coordinators, and that's really big. But if the Cowboys lose this weekend, which they very well could, I would be surprised if Linehan or even Marinelli leaves this offseason. That's just the nature of the NFL, and that's just how well they've coached this year, and they definitely deserve upgrades in my opinion. Even though Linehan, I see Linehan as the only guy going for a head coaching position.
Yeah, you go back to Linehan. I'm sure a lot of Detroit fans would love to have him back over Joe Lombardi. In a sense, and also Marinelli, like you said, he kind of seemed like he was outmatched as a head coach, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see someone give him a D coordinator job again. Like he knows how to coach him up on defense.
Well, that's one of the impressive things that you've seen from last year's Cowboys this year is, I mean, it's like you said, Ryan. I mean, the talent. I mean, they lost Sean Lee, so it's gotten worse or the same. But they are flying to the football. They are giving effort on every play, and that's just a credit to Marinelli.
Yeah, you swear they hired Greg Williams to start a little bounty system and get everything going. Is that too soon?
No such thing.
Yeah.
All right, so I do want to get into. So obviously, I think this could be a high-scoring game. So let's talk about projecting stats for Sunday's game.
Should I go first this game?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was half joking when I said this coming out after last week's game, like just kind of stirred the pot a little bit because, with everyone getting all pissy about the missed call, whatnot, and people still can't get over that. Like, let it go. Like, you can't do anything about it right now. But I still think Rodgers is going to go out there and throw for 303 touchdowns. I don't think there's any way, in a sense, that Dallas is going to stop him from doing what he does. I also think Lacey's probably going to go out there and give you, I don't know if he's going to hit you 100 yards, but I still think it's going to be in that 70 range, and I think he'll probably get a goal line touchdown in a sense. Um, and kind of like when I was talking with Matt earlier this morning, I don't think Jordy has a big game. I think that Skandrick is such a good corner, one of the most underrated in the league, in my opinion. I think that if they trail him or trail Jordy with Skandrick all game, I think he could have a quiet game. I mean, quiet game for Jordy Nelson is 5 catches for 70 yards and no score. I think something similar to that. And I think that Randall Cobb is going to go ahead and steal Sterling Moore's lunch. Going to go out there and catch 7, 8 balls for 80, 90 yards and a touchdown. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Devontae Adams finishes with at least 70 yards and a score.
I like it. I like it a lot. Ryan, what about you? What are your projections for the Cowboys?
Yeah, one thing about the Lions call. I mean, this call, I can't stop saying about it. But the one thing is that they had the chance to stop them on defense. So I mean, you can't. I feel like you can't. And there's more calls in the game. They were down 10 points at halftime too. So just to point it all on one call is pretty premature.
Oh, I'm 100% with you.
I'm just saying to the general people watching.
Here's my one question about the call. I mean, why is Jim Caldwell not getting more flack for not going for it on 4th and 1?
I knew we'd get into this call. I don't know. I don't know exactly. Like you said, on the 40-yard line, they punt the football and they give it to Romo, who scored 2 possessions early, who scored the past 2 possessions. So
Well,
I mean,
Sims would have done it, so.
Detroit implosion. Just another Detroit implosion, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Phil Sims would have done it, so it's the right call.
Phil Sims.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, projections-wise, I think Nick, we're on the same thing. Aaron Rodgers, 300-yard game, 3 touchdowns. I have Randall Cobb getting 2 of them. I think we've seen him be a threat in the red zone. So I think he can get 1 big play touchdown. I think he'll get 1 inside the 10. I have him finishing with around 98 yards. Eddie Lacy, I think he can make a trip to the red zone as well. You mentioned Devontae Adams is a big key, and I think Richard Rodgers could also have a nice game.
Yeah. Going back to Randall Cobb, I don't know. Like, he's only 5'10", so he's too short to score. So.
I think one thing about what you guys said, the Cowboys don't trail receivers. The Cowboys, they stay on one side and that's it. Now that being said, usually the number 1 receiver is at Brandon Carr's side, and that's what makes a lot of problems considering he's been terrible. But although before last week's game, he was destroyed by Calvin Johnson. But then again, who can stop Calvin Johnson besides Patrick Peterson in the freak game? But 2 years ago. But I think Carr's playing better. Now, I don't think he's gonna still stop anyone. I think he's gonna see a lot of Jordy Nelson in this game, and he's gonna have a lot more physical line of scrimmage. That makes Cowboys fans cringe, simply because Nelson's been unbelievable this year. All right, but going back to Carr, against the Colts, he had his best game of the year in Week 16. The Redskins, the game didn't mean anything, but he had a pretty decent game as well. And if he can just limit his receivers, whoever comes to his side, I think that'll help him. And like you said, Nick, Orlando Skandrick is one of the most underrated cover cornerbacks in the league, and he has problems tackling. But I think him and Sterling Moore has also played really well this year. Could be big against the receiving core. For offense, I see Tony Romo having a very efficient game, but nothing extraordinary, nothing 400 yards. I see him having around 315 yards, something like that. Maybe 2 touchdowns, around 22 completions, 33 passing attempts, something like that. I don't see any turnovers from Romo. I really don't. I think he's playing at a great level. I don't believe that he's a choker. I mean, no other quarterback in the NFL has more game-winning drives than Romo since 2008, and I think he's a clutch quarterback. Yep. Check out Pro Football Reference. All right. I looked that up last night, and I was stunned by it too. But the fact of the matter, Romo's a very good quarterback. And,
Oh yeah.
But for Murray, I think Murray's gonna be the guy who's gonna have a heavy dosage in this game. And that hand injury bothers me because earlier in the game last week, he kind of seemed like he hurt it again. But I see Murray having around 26 carries, something like that. When the Cowboys give the football a bunch to Murray, they have a ton of success. I think they only have lost one game in Murray's tenure with Dallas when he has less than 20 carries or something like that. But when he has around 30 carries, they move the football really well. I think he finished around 27 carries, 26 carries for 145 yards. And I'd say maybe a touchdown or two, hopefully, but a couple receptions here and there as well. And I think the Cowboys offense moves the football. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm more concerned about they turn the football over because that's gonna lead to points against the Packers, especially on the road or at home against the Packers. You need to play so well, and you need to not turn the football over. Cowboys are the best road team in the NFL, in my opinion. They just come together on the road. Something about them, they like playing the road. They like that underdog mentality. They like playing in like adversity, and that represents this team and their patience and their willingness to fight back. They're fighters, very big fighters, and I think Des Bryant. I think he has maybe 6 catches, 80 yards. I don't know how much of a touchdown, but I think they key in on Des, and I think Des is trouble in this game, especially with if they double team him. Those are really just my predictions. I think that Witten will have another big game on 3rd down. That's huge. The biggest play of the game last week, in my opinion, was on 4th and 6 when Witten just ran a simple in route. But it was just he's the most clutch. In my opinion, he's the most clutch tight end in football. Him and Romo are just quite like the combination. And I think the Cowboys move the ball in offense. Like I said, I'm more concerned about defense.
Yeah. So we have just real quick. We have a few minutes left. So what are your predictions for the game, and where can everyone follow you at and find your work? Ryan.
My prediction for the game, I have the Packers winning 34-24, and I'm not sure it's all that close, to be perfectly honest. Like, I've gone back and I've looked at the matchups multiple times, and I just think that, especially if the Packers get ahead early, and that kind of neutralizes the fact that DeMarco Murray may not get all the touches that, Ryan was, if they can keep it close early, that DeMarco's going to get those carries and everything. But if the Packers can get up, 2 touchdowns early, something similar to that, then I think they kind of shy away from DeMarco in the run game a bit. But like I said, I'll take the Packers 34-24, and I'm still not sure it's that close.
Ryan?
I'm going to go Cowboys. I'm going to go Cowboys in this game. Obviously, simply because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I think there are some weaknesses they can take advantage of, and I think the Cowboys defense will play better than expected. I don't expect them to limit Rodgers to 200 yards and 2 interceptions, but I do expect, though. I expect them to stop lacing the running game, maybe keep them around 60, 50 yards, something like that. Mainly to keep make the Packers one-dimensional. I just think the Cowboys they're playing well right now, and I think if there really is one team in the NFL to go into Green Bay, into Lambeau, and beat the Packers, I think it's the Cowboys. I think they have the recipe to beat Seattle as well. Great running game, a good quarterback, and they move the football well. And I just really hope that Dan Bailey has a good game this week. And because whenever the Cowboys pass the 50-yard line, I want them to score touchdowns. You need to score touchdowns. It's that 4-point differential from a touchdown to a field goal is huge. But I think they just need to score points in this game, and they had trouble with that last week against the Lions. That being said, I'm going to go Cowboys 34-31.
All right, and then my prediction, I see another high-scoring game in this one. I have Green Bay winning. Yes, I'm a little bit biased. 38-34, and what it comes down to is I'm going to say a tip ball that Green Bay intercepts, which puts them in scoring territory, and then 2 Cowboys field goals that they can't convert into touchdowns cost them in this game.
Yeah, I mean,
field goals?
What's that?
You're saying Bailey misses 2 field goals?
No, I'm saying they get into field goal range. Bailey makes 2, but they can't convert touchdowns.
Yeah, I think the last thing with this is it's really, especially if those linebackers in Dallas can't go, that's going to be a huge thing. I think that's, like, if they go, it can be a lot closer game. Because then, making the Packers, like Ryan said, making them one-dimensional could be huge for Dallas.
So we are about out of time, so I do want to thank you guys for coming on doing this. It was fun. And where can everyone follow you at on Twitter?
For me, it is at Looking for Strange. And Ryan, go ahead.
For me, it's at Ryan Ratty NFL.
All right, guys, thank you again for doing this. I definitely enjoyed it, and have a great day.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.